EESTI ESO.
Greetings everyone. Today's episode is a special mission outside of the studio for the first time. We're sitting in the old town at Dubois Cigar Lounge, and we're gonna talk about cigars with my man Jeremy Casdagli.
Indeed.
Hello, Jeremy.
Hello. Yes, we had to come off on a mission so we could actually sit somewhere and have a smoke a cigar together, right?
Yeah.
It's not easy to do these days. These places are limited, but this place is very special.
Where are you from, Jeremy?
Originally from England, as you can tell from my accent, perhaps.
Wonderful accent.
Wonderful accent, yes. I'm not growing up with the YouTube Americana. I was brought up in England and actually in the Middle East, and my mother's actually Australian. So I'm bouncing all over the place here, and now been in Estonia for, my God, since 2004.
So how did you end up here?
Well, primarily it was to move my business here. I had a business at that stage based out of between London and Cuba, and the Cuban business was getting harder to manage because there was a change in sort of management going on there, and that's where our brand was originally sort of based. And then we found out this wonderful country that was about to join the EU, zero corporation tax. I came over to Tallinn just to check it out and fell in love with your city. I mean, really it's beautiful, of course. And now, of course, I'm settled with an Estonian family. Never been married before. It's not one of those stories that I got rid of the family in England and moved here. No, this is I fell in love with the country and fell in love with a lovely lady who's also looking after our marketing, and have two little EESTI children running around. So you know,
That's nice.
yeah.
So you're in the cigar business, and I read that your family has quite a history. How does one get into cigar business?
Yeah, well, like anything, it's usually by accident, isn't it? I mean, as far as the family history is concerned, which obviously we name our cigars Casdagli Cigars, and within the Dubois Lounge we have the Casdagli Cigar Lounge, and they are an old cotton family, but they also became, I mean, they set up their cotton business in 1860. So by it came to the 1950s, we were quite an established family. The cotton was being sort of harvested in Egypt and Sudan, and we were milling it in England, hence the English bit came about, Casdagli being a Levantine Greek name. One of our family did actually get involved with negotiations with the Cubans on tobacco in 1951. So that's a little bit of history that we weren't just involved with the cotton, but we did get involved with premium cigars, which is something I didn't know about until I found myself in Cuba in the mid-1990s, and found that the Cubans were very willing to trade with me. Then Habanos goods, I could step my cigar brand started going as well, very small production, in an area called Vedado in Havana, and just outside the old town. And then I found out from my family, my father, that actually the Casdaglis have some history with it, which I just alluded to in 1951. So the Cubans said, Jeremy, your family's got a good name here. You helped us in the past, and you know, they helped my business start up, I suppose.
So you basically found like a really good Cuban cigar roller and started a business from there.
Kind of like that. It was a little bit. I mean, initially I was trading on Habanos goods, and I always used to love an Oida Monterey Double Corona. The way my life used to go, I'd be spending 2 weeks in Cuba and then 4 or 5 weeks in London, and that went over many years like this. And when I go to Cuba, I'd have my order placed and I'd inspect it, and then I'd go off diving, scuba diving for like 8 days, which is I was a bit of a diving bum. Came back to Havana and check the goods, and finally sort of sign everything off. And whenever I used to go diving, I used to take a box of Oida Monterey Double Coronas with me, which for me was a perfect smoke. There was mild in strength, mild to medium strength, and that when we say strength, we talk about nicotine, but a beautiful, sweet and spicy taste, which is quite rich by the time you get to the end of a Oeil de Monterey double Corona. And so the whole thing kind of comes by accident. It was about 6-7 months into this business, doing this, and I had a box of Oeil de Monterey which I'd taken back to my Cuban Airbnb. We call it Casa Particular. Anyone who's been to Havana knows about those. I opened it up, it was all broken up. It cracked. So I went back to the same shop I always used to go to buy these Oeil de Montereys. Said, Oscar, I buggered up box. And he said, well, why didn't you get Carlos, here, it's an old roller there, to recreate that box for you? Because we don't have any more left in the shop here, unless you want to go to another shop with our factura, they'll replace it for you. Because it's a state-run company, you see. So I said, no, I'll take a risk on Carlos rolling them. And that was my first eureka moment in this business.
So Carlos was like
Carlos Valdez Mosquera, known as El Perchero, the coat hanger. And he was one of the top 6 torcedores then in Cuba. Old boys from the 1950s. And he used to work in the Oeil de Monterey factory back then. So he had access to some of that tobacco, all those blends certainly, and could recreate some of the most beautiful cigars that I'd ever smoked there. So that's was where the brand started. We were then known as Bespoke Cigars because we created tailor-made for various hotels in England, and also to the Saudi royal family. Certain sportsmen like Andre Medvedev, a tennis player, even the Ferrari team got their holds on some of them, and we put their own bands on. So that's the long answer to your question. How do you get involved? Well, by me, it was a mixture of luck, being in the right place, the right time. As in the 1990s, there was very few Cuban cigars reaching the places they wanted to get them to. So there were shortages in London, like there is now. It's like full circle. And a chance of meeting with Carlos Valdez Mosquera and a little bit of family history thrown in that meant that they were going to support me.
Yeah. When to someone who doesn't know anything about cigars, like for me, example, I just smoked a handful of cigars and I've been here a couple of times. All I know about cigars is that really badass men smoke them, like Michael Jordan. So how do you smoke a cigar, and what does it represent to you?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I mean my image of cigar smokers when I first joined was like old chaps in gentlemen's clubs, or entitled rich people, or villains, bad guys, smoking cigars with a top hat primarily.
Or Hannibal from the show A-Team.
Well, yes, Hannibal, yes, him. Yes, and I know in Estonia he's got all those like old movies, really big, MacGyver. I don't think he smokes cigars, but probably he could create one from nothing, right? But actually, it's a much younger business than for the people that are getting into the cigar world. Is dominated by young people and also more and more women. And I think part of it is this is a bit of the forbidden fruit. I mean, these are not anything to do with cigarettes. They don't have the addictive qualities as cigarettes. It is more like a hobby. Yeah, you're dealing with a completely natural product, completely handmade. And yes, it has that past history of glamour. And your Michael Jordans of this world, or Arnold Schwarzeneggers, have the certain celebrities smoke them. Many celebrities smoke them. And so it has that image of exclusivity. But it's accessible. It's accessible. People can get into the lifestyle. It is a lifestyle as well as a product. And you'll find lounges all over the world where you find brothers or sisters of a leaf, as we call them, and more young people coming on board. So I was one Norwegian young guy, and I said, "What got you involved in this?" He was 22 years old. Jeremy, the forbidden fruit. We're told you can't do it, so it's getting like a secret club.
Yeah.
So it means to me a lifestyle. It means to me so many different types of people smoking. We just came back from Poland. We were doing presentations there. and very informal in Poland. A lot of it is ex-Soviet countries, we say, they're more formally attired. And then you'll go to wonderful places as well, like in Norway or Sweden, where they're kind of dressed like bikers, a lot of them. And you go to America, and you got like in certain lounges, very upmarket, New York, very smart, and then you can go people with flip-flops. And yet they all share the same hobby. Like if you're a fisherman, and you meet other people that fish, that's a hobby. You might come from completely different backgrounds, but you talk about the fish. So that's what it means to me. And amazingly, a lifestyle which is very accessible.
For me, it's since I'm a regular smoker as well, and throughout my life, I've noticed that like all the I don't want to say secrets, but all the juicy stuff is always told while on a smoke break. And,
yes, around the coffee. We used to meet around the coffee machine. Now you're going to meet outside. Cigarette outside.
And the cigar is like a extended smoke break, because smoke break is like 5 minutes, cigar is like an hour.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I mean, it's certainly the discussions you have over a cigar. I mean, I've had some. I've smoked with the North Korean Minister of Tourism, for instance, in Berlin.
Oh.
I smoked with some Hezbollah guys in Beirut. Okay, as well as all sorts of others. I've met celebrities as well, because I've been in this business for 26, 27 years now. And through that time, you meet some of the most extraordinary people, as well as regular people with amazing stories. Because you're right, you're doing a hobby with people, usually in a lounge, and you kind of start, it's a great way to meet someone, because they're going to say, what are you smoking? And then you start the conversation, and before you know it, if say you're in a new city, like Baku, great example, turned up to Baku, I was a day ahead of my meetings, and you're having cigars with people. Before you know it, you know where the restaurants are, what's going on, what's the vibe in the country, because people share things with people that share the same hobby.
Yeah.
Great uniter. If we all sit down and smoke more cigars together, there'd be a little less trouble in the world.
Yeah. So for a total novice like me, how do you? You're already told, like, how do you assess the strength of the cigar, and what's the right lingo for it?
Well, there's two very different worlds in the cigar. You've got America and the rest of the world. America likes a lot stronger cigars. So first of all, if you want to try a cigar, you come to Dubois Lounge. It is 3 lounges. You're very lucky to have 3 lounges in the center of the old town, actually. But because we obviously concentrate on Casdagli cigars, you will find some other brands there too. I've always gone for cigars which are quite Cubanesque, because that's where I came from. Cuba is my tastes, with the business started. So that means you're going to get a mild to medium in strength. Okay, and it's all about knowing the different brands which offer that. Alto de Fuente, which you'll find in the Oak Lounge, is very similar to this. It has a mild to medium strength, which strength means nicotine. You're not going to lally with this cigar we're having, because it's got a medium strength, but it's got a full body and a full flavor. Now, when we say these cigars we're smoking now, this is from Dominican Republic. It's made in Dominican Republic, but we're talking about serious blending here. These are long leaf, what you call long filler. So if I was, I've done this once or twice before, but I cut the cigar open and open it up, you're going to look like thing like an accordion. It looks like long leaves running up and down. You've got 3 long leaves sitting in the filler, not like cigarette smoke. And sorry, cigarettes, if you cut those out, you've got lots of bits and pieces, haven't you? Yeah. But here you've got long bits. You're going to find tobacco in here from Nicaragua, Peru, and Dominican Republic. And often you'll find Arapa leaves of Ecuador, and yet it's made in Dominican Republic. But it's got leaves from all over the world. This is blending. So what you will find is well-balanced cigars, like here. We'll have Nicaraguan, which is strong, coming from strong. When I say strong, that's strong in strength. It's from an area of volcanic, organic area, from its volcanic soil. And when you have volcanic soil, you have high organic, means more nitrogen, means nicotine in the soil. But we balance it off with Peru, which is sweet and light and whatever. So you're going to start picking up the flavors. That rounds off the stronger cigars, the stronger tobacco. So if you get to tasting a cigar, say for the first time, and many people that have had a cigar before said, "What did you have on a celebration? New Year's Eve, maybe we had one, or a wedding, and you might have had a Henry Winterman's or something like this, or something which is a cheaper cigar, not bad, but you're going to be surprised when you taste the cigars in a lounge like this, that you're going to find a smoothness which will be surprising you, yeah." Because people have an idea. I smoked a cigar once; it was just bitter and sour and stuff.
Yeah.
Because you're getting a cheap one, right? But if you get introduced to this world by a friend that knows, then you're going to get some premium tobacco, and you go, "Wow, I didn't know it could be like this."
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like it gives you a bit of a head rush still, and I guess it depends on how strong it is, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
This one, we're smoking now a Ristretto. Are you getting a head rush from this?
Not too much.
Not too much.
Yeah.
Because it's we created this one for the coffee enthusiasts actually in Sweden originally, this whole line of cigars, which is worldwide now. And it was just to give you a lot of flavours to go with your espressos in a lousy, bloody Swedish winter where you've got to sit outside because you're smoking with a heat lamp over you. But they love their bloody coffees. I think they're the biggest per capita coffee drinkers in the world.
It's Finland.
Well, they say Sweden, and I always you got the Finca, which goes in Sweden, where they have with a sweet bun.
Yeah.
And then Norway say we are, and then maybe Finns will say they are. Well, then Sweden had a bit of Finland in the past, didn't it? So this area, let's say, is, and so that's this cigar you're having is not to make you go have a head rush on it, but to just give you nice flavours to have a coffee. Short smoke. Normally we're talking now, but normally if you're having a newspaper in the morning in Scandinavia, let's say, and this thing is like a half hour, it's a 40-minute smoke, then you got to go to work.
Yeah, we're drinking coffee and it goes perfectly.
And that's our own coffee as well, from the coffee people. You know, that's a very good Estonian brand, and they matched some green beans, initially green, obviously, they roast them up. To match our cigars, so that's exclusively for us.
Someone just gifted me your coffee just by accident, and then I saw it here.
Yeah, it's quite good, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well, I would say that, wouldn't I? But it's perfect. No, it's perfect for marrying with cigars.
Yeah, usually I drink my coffee with a bit of milk, but this one I like black.
Yeah, it's good enough. It's smooth enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Smooth.
So what would you say if I'm like interested in this world and I want to try, but I don't know where to start, and maybe I don't have friends who smoke cigars?
So
what would you do?
What would you do? You come to the Dubois Lounge and ask if Jeremy is here. If I'm here, I'm not travelling, or if I'm not here, Mert, who you saw, she might be here, and then we would sit down and guide you through it. And I will always break my day to do that if I'm here. But Luke also, who owns this place, he would probably guide you to a Dubois DB52, a cigar we made for the lounge. And that gives you the beautiful taste, very, very similar to Cuba, which is going to be mild. So all you need to say, hey, I'm a newbie, what should I go for? And we've trained enough here to tell you, this is your selection. That you can have, and we direct you there. And then if I'm around, I'll sit and talk with you through it.
Yeah, that's what I found, because I don't know anything about cigars, and I didn't want to, pretend that I know something.
It's intimidating for some people. You come
I just asked.
But no, just ask, because again, let's put this in a different anecdote. Supposing you're into model train sets, right?
Yeah.
You walk into a model train set store. Train store, and you ask the person there who's going to be an expert, because that's why they've hired him into hobbies, and say, hey, I'm new in this thing, I'm drunk. He will be overjoyed to be able to speak to you about what he loves. And so this is the same with cigars. Don't feel intimidated. Do ask, because we like being asked, actually.
Yeah.
Because we're imparting our enthusiasm to you. Yeah, like here we are today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah? So if you're smoking a cigar now and you don't, like if I would do a blind taste to you, would you know exactly where the tobacco is coming from?
I'd have an idea. The whole idea of blending tobacco, right, means that it kind of merges together. So, for instance, if you have Peruvian tobacco in, and Peru is in about 80% of our cigars, and you will not pick it out very easily because it's what Peruvian tobacco, it smooths out the Nicaraguan tobacco. It just gives you a richness, right? So an example would be if you are making tomato sauce for your pasta and you have an anchovy. Anchovy is a very strong taste, right? Some people like them and don't like them in the raw. But if you put them in a tomato sauce, it breaks up, it disappears, and it enriches everything else around it. I challenge you to try and find that taste of anchovy. But what you think, is a nice rich tomato sauce, a bit of garlic. But the essence to bring all that up is an anchovy to be put in there and breaks up and disappears. So when you have a cigar which is blended, and then you say, hey, guess what's in it? You could have a stab and say Nicaragua, but that means very little, because whereabouts in Nicaraguan Condega, Nicaraguan Esteli, there's lots of different soils it could be from. Now, if you have a tobacco, and when we're putting a blend together or a new tobacco is being introduced to me in the factory, I will smoke that like a little panatella. Okay, so in that respect, I could probably give you an idea. Yes, this is what the tobacco is in its single form. But when you start blending it, it starts creating a different characteristic of the cigar, and you can guess that it's maybe got this A, B, and C in it. Maybe a bit of Nicaraguan, whatever. But the whole idea is to create its own unique flavor and taste. And yes, you can have a stab that this is probably where it's from. You could look at the wrapper leaf and have a guess. But I would say there's only very few people in the world who will be able to smoke a blend and tell you what he thinks is in it. He'll probably get 2 out of 3 right.
Right. So the way you're describing cigars, it kind of reminds me of a lot of wine talk as well. The
Absolutely.
taste is full and everything. Is there what's the best thing to have a cigar with? Is it wine, whiskey, coffee?
Well, we sort of say the customer's always right. If he wants to have absinthe or vodka, he can have it. But for me, so everyone's personal on this. Yeah, for me, I like coffee, and then you could go for spirits, rum. Rum is where rum is born. That's where you find where tobacco grows too. So you got Flor de Caña in Nicaragua and on Nicaraguan. You can go to each one of those Central American, Caribbean islands and find a rum that probably the blender is probably having a few drinks of as well. So always a rum, and I like having it what you call añejo, which is like a rum 3 to 5 years old.
Oh.
Tall glass with ice. Añejo con hielo. That means like slightly aged rum with ice, tall glass. That for me is perfect. As far as a cocktail, I go bourbon old fashioned is good as well, because you need a sweetness to go with some of the natural spiciness of a cigar. And a port goes well too. But we have a grade 2 sommelier that's been working very closely with us in America, and he'll even say Coca-Cola goes well. Yeah, anything can do it. It's all about experimentation and your own personal palate.
Yeah.
So whiskeys, whatever. All I will ask you to do, don't dip your bloody cigar in spirits, which something you see in the movies. Don't do that, or kind of like sort of drink it and then lick your cigar on the outside. That's for a purist. That's what are you doing? Yeah, but yeah, there you goes your answer. So that's as plain as mud, isn't it?
Yeah.
You want to go what Jeremy says. Rum, bourbon old fashioned, coffee. Those for me are the best.
Yeah. So no dipping the cigar, but what are some other rules in cigar smoking that you never do? You never, like for example, you never probably inhale the smoke, right?
Yeah. So the things, yes, the myths. You don't inhale into your lungs, but you certainly retro through your nose.
Yeah.
Because this opens up the taste buds, right? So people say, yeah, but when I'm putting it through my nose, it just is spicy. And so, no, what it does, opens up the buds of your mouth. And what I sometimes demonstrate with that is that I'll squeeze some lemon in a bowl, and I put that to somebody's nose. Smell that? Whoa! Or you smell all your water. Your tongue when just talking about it, you might be thinking about it now, and you start watering straight away. That's a great demonstration of the link to the nose, to the taste. So try to retro, but you don't put it in your lungs. Don't talk politics or religion if you want to make friends, unless you know you've got very much a like-minded soul next to you. I suppose you need to have them stored in the right conditions. So always try to, especially if you're wandering down to Cuba, some people like getting into this. It's a lovely country to visit, but never buy cigars off the street in any country. Get from a reputable dealer. And a great example, one of the big questions is the cigar ring. When should you keep it on? When you keep it off? I like keeping them on because I'm pure marketing my brand now. But the actual, as many people say, you take a few puffs and then you can remove it. But these rings are becoming more and more beautiful. When plain packaging comes into force and you have ugly rings, just remove them after a few puffs. The basics is to learn how to cut it, which we talked about a bit about earlier, which you can only do when I can show you visually, and also how to light it. And never ever stub your cigar out. Let it die gracefully in the ashtray. Okay, so that's a very big one.
Yeah, you just told that to never speak politics. Before, I wanted to ask you, what did you speak with the North Korean politician?
We talked about his country generally, and we didn't talk about, that was during Kim Jong-il's day. And we just talked about some of the crazy things in his country, as far as to see some of the great. He was asking me about my background as well, and it was just about the games they play. Obviously, the fan of the basketball now with old Rodman there going. But I remember the bit that always caught me was they were talking about in November. I said, what's the best time to come? And he says, come in November, he says, because we have a whole stadium full of these school children holding up placards together, making these amazing patterns and shapes. And he said, but you must try to come a week before when they're practicing, because they sometimes make a mistake. Oh, it's very funny, he says, because you get strange shapes that shouldn't be there. And I remember said, maybe you're kind of like, if you got a picture of your boss, you always try to talk, never mention him by name, always fine. Your boss with like maybe something going up his nose or something because you got somebody holding the wrong banner, and he started laughing. And he said, oh, yeah, all sort of things like this. But I remember just through the night, we ended up at Checkpoint Charlie eventually, I think, with him in Berlin. And then the only politics that came out says, you're in the east, I'm in the west,
Yeah.
But it was enlightening. I think when we were, when I was in Beirut and talking with some of these guys, he was telling us about the fighting against ISIS. And we sort of were saying, in the Middle East, he says, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And I said, that's why we're calling you friend. Hopefully not just today, but hopefully in the future when things get better. And he was welled up into tears, actually. It was quite interesting. Thank you for that. So there's these very wonderful moments I remember.
One of the myths, I think, about cigars is it's really expensive because you only see like Michael Jordans and people in suits smoking them. So what would you say? How much is like a regular cigar?
That depends upon the tax rate of the country you're in. So actually, a premium cigar now in Estonia, coming to our lounge or going to any of the lounges, will range between 6 to 7 euros up to 50 to 60 euros. Okay. Some of them are more expensive because of limited editions or the age on them or whatever, but you're going to get a premium cigar. In fact, probably over the last 20 years, it's the most accessible to get to a cigar. Back in the old days, when I say the golden age of smoking cigars, you've got to say the 1920s, 30s, 40s, this was when only the wealthy would have access to those things, because obviously probably transportation, where they're coming from, and the handmade bit, and there used to be a lot less production then. So that's where it got that image of only the wealthy. But if you went to Cuba in those times, you'll find people on the street have it, people just wandering around smoking. So yes, for Western people, not talking about the Caribbean, where they're more accessible, of course, where they are actually being made, it was the wealthy smoking. Now people can get access to this. I mean, look, this one we're smoking here now, that's probably about 8 to 9 euros, and that's going to give you an hour of enjoyment. 45 minutes an hour, and that is not an easy thing to do with 8 to 9 euros these days. And you sit in a wonderful environment. You purchase a cigar from here, you'll get a coffee as well, and some water. If you want to get a cocktail with it as well, you'll find Dubois. Very accessible cocktails, which are not costing you the earth like a cocktail bar, because we want you to enjoy a cigar, and you might get your whiskey sour or something for like about 14 euros, something like this. It's not like 20 euros to 28 euros, and the good whiskies and whatever for under that. So you can have a bloody good time, and sitting in a beautiful environment. I think you can say that this lounge is stunning.
Yeah.
And this is a wonderful place. More and more young Estonians are finding their way here. Yeah. Just behave well when you come.
Yeah. Yeah, last time I went to the bathroom, and I saw those little towels that you can dry your hands. It was a nice
nice touch. And Luke, who runs this place, runs and owns it, I mean, he has an amazing background in retail. He used to be heading one of the main guys for Selfridges, shoe department, whatever. And he himself became an expert in handmade shoes. And so being around the environment of those top London places which he would go to, he wanted to have, his vision was an English club, but accessible to all. And that's what he's done. I mean, and he's got an extraordinary place here, which has 2 cigar lounges. You can see we're in the second one, and he has the place for your cocktails and stuff as well. It's very unique, and Estonia has something which the rest of Scandinavia and a lot of Europe don't have at the moment, which is allowed for having public lounges like this, because the anti-smoking lobby is closing this lifestyle down in Europe. So God love Estonia for keeping it open. Because it does realize that cigars are not the same as cigarettes. Very different thing.
Yeah, I think coming here you can see like all these different kind of, cultures and stuff coming together. There's a barber shop here.
Yes.
You can get handmade shoes. You can get a
one-stop shop. It's and it's not exclusive for men either. The ladies love coming here as well. And ladies and cigars is something which has always been around, but it's just not that sort of stereotype image. But so ever since Catherine the Great used to make sure if you're an ambassador doesn't smoke a cigar in her bloody in her when you're being introduced to her, she's not that impressed. So women in cigars used to have a great tradition as well, and we find here they got ladies like trying them, and it's very elegant. We had a business in Belarusia from 2012 and 2015. And during that time, we found as many ladies as men smoking. It was great.
I've seen lots of Finnish ladies here, but I haven't seen Estonian ones.
Not yet. It's still, well, it's something to do. There's true. We don't have many Estonian lady smokers. Yeah. They have one or two that have tried and liked it. Yes, come with your ladies, or ladies come for your night out and have some fun thing. One of the things which we have done in the past is we've had, like, if there's 4 or 5 group together, I'd do a little training course or something like that and make it fun.
Yeah.
So it's things to think of your Christmas parties or whatever. Providing you give me plenty of warning, and I can sit with you and say yes, I can give you a little sort of half hour on what you're smoking and a bit of the lifestyle behind it.
So if I would want to buy a couple of cigars to myself to smoke at home, can I do that here?
Yes, you can. Yes, you have takeaway. Of course, for storage, if you don't have a humidor, what we do is we will give you like a Ziploc bag with a humidifying bag within it. So it will keep well for 3 or 4 weeks. So absolutely. I'm a big sort of believer in, when you have the big parties, like New Year's, for instance. People say we're going to have a cigar for New Year's. For me, that's not the best environment to smoke. I always like to have a bit more calmness around me, peace like we're having now, rather than a whole bunch of people waving their arms around, and then you're not going to enjoy your cigar as you should. That's just me. But of course, it's it's always associated with a party and a celebration, so I'm not dissuaded of that. But that's the wonder. If you're here for a party, but then you want to really enjoy your cigar at home, then yes, do a little takeaway. Absolutely.
Yeah, and probably it would be good if you don't have the humidifier to just get like a few ones, right?
Yes. If you don't have a humidor and you just want to try it out, we would give you this thing which keeps them humid for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, and then if you like it, then eventually you want to invest in a humidor, which is a thing of beauty anyway. It's just part of the furniture of your house, and then start keeping and building your collection, aging them. Why I always try to encourage people to do if they're getting into it. So okay, if you've got a favourite cigar you're smoking at the lounge, buy 3 or 4 of the same ones, or maybe 5 or 6, and then see how they age in your humidor over the few months. Smoke one every other month, and that's kind of gives you an idea of the aging of a cigar, how it slowly changes, like good wine.
What's the lifetime of a cigar? What's the oldest cigar you have smoked?
Yes, I've smoked a cigar from the 1960s, for instance. Didn't taste it too much, but you're smoking a bit of history. So the optimal, generally speaking, is to age it over a 6 to 7 year period. If you can do that, it's going to be very special. What is happening there is your oils have already mixed together. The oils of the different leaves, are blended together, and you will get a slight reduction of some of the more challenging oils, like the spiciness starts disappearing, gets smoother and smoother and smoother, till get to a point where you actually start losing taste. But that'll be after year 6, 7 or 8. But there have been occasions, depends upon the tobacco, what retains its oils longer. Some retains oils more than others. So there's no completely hard and fast rule. I've smoked a cigar that's 15 years old. It's phenomenal. Now, here in the lounge, we have a collection of our cigars that I put down in 2012. So we're talking, you can, if you wish, come here and you can try a cigar which is at 12 to 13 years age on it. So they tend to be a little bit more expensive, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I would imagine that if you're smoking like I don't know, 30-year-old cigar, it doesn't sound the best.
Well, yeah, it can be a little bit, you will lose, it really lost too much taste. But sometimes, hey, I want a cigar that was completed during my birthday, when I was born, I should say. Then that's a bit of fun. Now, that's not to be, don't confuse that with the age of the leaves in the cigar. So, for instance, in some of our cigars, we have leaves which are 22 years aged after harvesting, fermenting, and that, as soon as you keep them in a humid storeroom, and then you pull them out and put them in as part of your blend with other leaves which are maybe 2 or 3 years old, and that'll taste phenomenal. It's when the cigar is completed, as soon as it has been finished, rolled, and put into a box, the optimum is to keep it, if you could, for 2 years after that, and it's going to improve. But yeah, you have all different sort of aged tobaccos in this. Yeah. Minimum age is 2 years. You will not get tobacco in a premium cigar which is under 2 years aged, sitting there before it gets put into the stogie.
Yeah. Okay, Jeremy, thank you very much for speaking to me.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah,
David.
talking about cigars.
And by the way, if you're listening to this in Estonia, Okay, because I'm sure some of your listeners are Estonians.
Most of them.
Yes, so mostly. So sorry for speaking in English through this, but you should be proud because our brand is based in Estonia. We are worldwide. We're in about 38 countries now, and it's a little bit of an Estonian story. We're very proud to say we're based here. This is where our bonded warehouse is. Of course, the factories are based in Costa Rica and Dominican Republic, but we're making huge noise in the business. As far as social media is concerned, last year we were the 7th ranked brand in the world for footprint.
Oh, really?
And we're in Estonia. Yeah, we're quite famous actually. So small production, 250,000 cigars we'll probably make next year, and we're going to try and double it up. We have to for demand, but so you can feel proud as an Estonian.
Yeah, and if you're in the hotel, then hop by the Bois Lounge.
Please do. It's a small town, easy to get to.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Jeremy.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, David.
Eesti ESO